The night was heavy in the alien forest. Cold mist curled between the black trees, and every sound echoed too loudly in the silence. The moon above was a pale stone, hanging in the sky like it was watching. Beneath it, a pack of wolf-like aliens gathered in a circle. Their fur bristled, their glowing eyes fixed on the small figure lying in the dirt. The cub was dying. His chest rose and fell in short, shallow gasps. Each breath was a fight. The cub's soft whimpers made even the strongest warriors of the pack lower their ears. No one spoke. They had seen sickness before. They had seen wounds that no healer could mend, and they had seen death take the weak too soon. But this cub was not just any youngling. He was the child of the pack leader. The leader, a great beast with silver fur and scars across his face, stood tall above the circle. His eyes burned with fury and fear. He looked at his healers, who crouched nearby with glowing tools and crystal vials. They had tried everything. Strange lights had shone from their hands. Liquids had been poured into the cub's mouth. Words of old power had been whispered, but nothing had worked. The cub's breaths were still ragged, his body still shaking. The pack leader let out a growl that rumbled through the trees. "Why can you not heal him?" His voice cracked a silence like thunder. The healers bowed their heads, ashamed. "We do not know," one whispered. "The sickness is strong. It is inside him, where our tools cannot reach." The leader's claws dug into the dirt. His child was slipping away. He could feel it. Rage and grief burned in his chest, but he was powerless. For all their advanced knowledge, for all their technology, they were helpless against this simple enemy, death. The cub's mother pressed her muzzle against her child, tears falling into his fur. She licked his face and whispered soft words, but his eyes stayed closed. The pack around them lowered their heads. They all knew the truth. The cub would not live until morning. Then a sound broke through the night. Leaves crunched. A branch snapped. The pack turned as one, their fangs bared, their growls rolling through the forest. From between the trees, a figure stepped into the moonlight. It was not one of them. It was a human. The pack froze in disbelief. The stories about humans were many, but they were always told with laughter or pity. Humans were weak, fragile things, with no claws, no fur, no natural weapons. They built strange machines, yes, and they used fire and metal to fight, but without those tools, they were nothing. To see one alone here in the wild, it was madness. The human raised his hand slowly, showing they were empty. His face was pale, his eyes tired, but steady. He looked at the cub lying in the dirt. His voice, calm but firm, carried across the circle. "I can help him." The words were strange in their ears, but the meaning was clear. The pack snarled. The leader stepped forward, towering over the human. "You dare speak here? You, with your weak body and your toys. Leave before I tear you apart." The human did not move. He looked straight into the leader's glowing eyes and said again, "I can help your cub." The pack hissed with anger. Some wanted to lunge, to rip him apart for his arrogance. But the mother of the cub lifted her head. Her eyes, wet with tears, locked onto the human. "Please," she whispered, "if there is even a chance." The leader spun on her, his fury greater than the storm. "You would trust him? A human? Their medicine is primitive. Their ways are backward. He will only bring pain." But the cub let out another weak cry, a sound so small it cut deeper than any blade. The mother stepped between the leader and the human. "Our cub is dying. Let him try. We have nothing left." The pack murmured, torn between their fear of weakness and their hope for a miracle. The leader's claws trembled with rage. He wanted to tear the human apart, to protect his pride, to protect his people from shame. But deep inside, a darker truth gnawed at him. His child was fading, and all his power could not stop it. The human, still calm, knelt down and placed a hand gently on the ground. He did not reach for the cub yet. He waited, showing no fear, only patience. His bag hung at his side, filled with tools the aliens did not recognize. The leader's breath came hard. At last he roared to the pack, "If the cub dies by his hand, I will kill him myself." The human nodded once. "Then I will not fail." The circle of aliens drew back, growling low. The human stepped forward, closer to the dying cub. The air was heavy with tension. Every alien I watched him, ready to strike. The cub wheezed, his body shaking. The forest was silent, except for the sound of his labored breathing. And so the story began, with a dying cub, a desperate pack, and one human whose primitive ways might mean life or death. The human's words hung in the cold night air. I could help him. No one moved. No one breathed. The pack of wolf-like aliens stared at the pale stranger who had walked out of the forest. Their eyes glowed like fire in the dark, their teeth flashing under the moon. The human did not step back. He stood still, his hands open, his gaze steady. The cub wheezed, each breath weaker than the last. The mother whimpered and pressed her nose against him. Her heart begged for hope, but her mind was full of fear. The leader growled low, a sound that shook the ground. "You are nothing but prey. Weak prey with soft skin and no claws. You dare to stand among us? You dare to touch my son?" The human's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed calm. "I do not want to harm him. I want to save him. Your healers tried, yes? But they cannot. I can." A ripple of anger spread through the pack. They snarled, their fur rising. To them, the humans' words were an insult. Their healers were wise, skilled, gifted with knowledge passed down through centuries. To claim they had failed was to spit on their honor. One warrior lunged a step closer, his fangs bared. "Your kind are animals. You smear herbs on wounds. You burn with fire and call it healing. What can you do that we cannot?" The human slowly opened the bag at his side. The pack stiffened, ready to leap, but he only pulled out a small box. He opened it with care, showing simple tools, cloth strips, metal scissors, small glass bottles with clear liquid inside. The aliens scoffed. To them, these were toys. No glow of power, no shining crystals, no hum of energy. Just dead, dull objects. "Primitive," one spat. "Yes," another sneered. "He means to kill the cub with these. Look at them, crude and dirty." The mother of the cub stepped forward, her voice breaking. "Please, do not judge so fast. He came when no one else did. Our child has no time." The leader turned on her, his eyes burning like suns. "You would trust a human? You would trust their broken ways over your own kind?" Tears rolled down her fur, but she did not look away. "I would trust anything if it means our cub might live." The leader's chest heaved with fury. He wanted to roar, to crush the human under his claws, to protect his people's pride. But his son coughed weakly, a sound so thin it silenced his rage for a moment. The cub's body shook. His breaths came slower. The human knelt by the cub, but did not touch him. He looked up at the leader. He is losing the fight inside. His body is weak, but not gone. If I clean the wound, if I fight the sickness, he can live. But if you wait, if you do nothing, he will die. The pack stirred restlessly. Some whispered among themselves. Could it be true? Could a human see what they could not? Or was this only a trick? The leader lowered his head, staring deep into the human's eyes. "If you lie, if my son dies by your hand, your blood will feed the soil." The human nodded. "I accept." Still the warriors growled. Their honor was at stake. Their pride was torn. To let a human touch their leader's cub was shame. Yet, the mother's cries cut through their doubts. Her voice shook with desperation. If he fails, then punish him. But if he succeeds, and our cub lives, do not let him die because of pride. Silence followed. Even the forest seemed to hold its breath. The leader raised his head, his scars glinting in the moonlight. His voice, low and hard, carried through the night. Do it, but know this. If the cub's heart stops, so will yours. The pack shifted, making space. Their eyes never left the human. Each step he took toward the cub was a step closer to death, whether by failure or by fangs. The human set down his bag and reached for the small bottles. The pack flinched at the sharp smell that escaped when he opened one. It stung their noses, harsh and bitter. He poured it over his hands, rubbing them until they glistened. "What is he doing?" one muttered. "He dirties himself," another sneered. But the cub's mother watched closely. She did not see dirt. She saw ritual. She saw care. The human then took out cloth strips, folding them neatly beside him. He pulled out the scissors, holding them up to the light. The pack hissed at the sharp gleam of metal. To them, it was a weapon. The leader stepped closer, his claws raised. "What will you do with that?" The human did not flinch. "I will cut away what is killing him." A snarl rolled through the pack. Cut with metal. To them, wounds were healed by light and energy, not by knives. The idea of cutting a child's body open was horror. The cub's mother cried out, blocking the human from the others. "He has sworn to help. Let him try." The cub whimpered again, weaker now. His breaths were faint whispers in the night. The leader's heart thundered. He wanted to stop this madness, but his son's life slipped away before his eyes. He could not, would not, stand by and watch. "Do it," he growled. "But if you harm him needlessly, your end will be slow." The human bowed his head once. Then, with steady hands, he leaned closer to the cub. He examined the wound, hidden beneath matted fur. Infection festered there, hot and angry. The smell of decay rose up. The pack turned their faces away, ashamed they had not seen it. The human's eyes narrowed. "This is the enemy," he whispered. "Not the child. This sickness." He poured more of the bitter liquid onto the wound. The cub yelped weakly, his body twitching. The pack roared in anger, thinking the human was harming him. Warriors leapt forward, but the mother spread her body over her son and shouted, "Stop! He is helping." The human worked quickly, cutting away the dead fur, cleaning the wound, pressing cloth against it. His hands moved with purpose, his face set with focus. He spoke softly, though no one understood his words. They were not for the pack, they were for the cub. Minutes stretched like hours. Every breath from the cub was counted by the pack. Every twitch of the human's hands was judged. The leader paced like a beast in a cage, his claws tearing the earth. Finally, the human sat back, his chest rising and falling with deep breaths. The cub lay still, his body wrapped in cloth. His breathing was weak, but steady. The human wiped sweat from his brow. He has a chance now, but the night will decide. If he makes it through, he will live. The pack stared at the cub, then at the human. Suspicion still burned in their eyes, but for the first time, a spark of hope flickered in their hearts. The leader stepped forward until his shadow covered the human. His voice was low, dangerous. "If my son dies before the sun rises, you will not see another dawn." The human met his gaze, unflinching. "Then I will not sleep either." The forest was quiet, but the silence was heavy. The pack stood in a wide circle, their glowing eyes fixed on the small human kneeling beside the cub. Every muscle in their bodies was tense. The night seemed to lean closer, listening to the strange ritual that had begun. The cub lay weak and trembling, his chest moving up and down like a broken bellows. The cloth wrapped around his wound was already stained dark. Each shallow breath made his mother press closer, her eyes full of fear. The leader stood only a few steps away, his claws still unsheathed, ready to strike if the human failed. The human reached into his bag again. His movements were steady, almost too calm for the danger he faced. He pulled out more items, small packets, thin rolls of cloth, glass bottles with liquid inside. To the aliens, they looked like scraps of garbage. No glow of energy, no hum of power, only dull shapes and sharp smells. One warrior scoffed, "This is his medicine? Dead things in bottles? Rags and scraps." Another snarled in disgust, "He mocks us with toys." The human ignored them. He set the tools neatly on the ground, as if each had its own place. His hands moved with care, not wasting a single motion. The aliens did not understand, but the order in his work carried its own strange power. He opened one small packet and pulled out thin white strips. They were clean, shining in the moonlight. The human held them carefully, making sure they did not touch the dirt. He looked at the cub, then at the leader. "These are to cover the wound," he said. His voice was calm, even though he knew most of them could not understand his words fully. His tone alone carried meaning. The cub's mother tilted her head, her ears twitching. "Cover? Why cover what must be healed?" The human shook his head. "To protect, to keep out the sickness." The aliens muttered. The idea seemed foolish. How could a strip of cloth fight something strong enough to bring death? But the mother said nothing more. Her eyes stayed on him, desperate for even the smallest chance. Next, the human opened a glass bottle. A sharp, biting smell filled the air. The pack hissed, recoiling. Their noses burned, their eyes watered. "What poison is this?" a warrior barked. The human poured some of the liquid over the scissors in his hand. The metal gleamed wetly, drops falling into the dirt. He rubbed the blades with another cloth, then set them aside. He poured more over his hands, rubbing them until they glistened in the moonlight. The pack growled. "He dirties himself again," one muttered. But the mother's eyes widened. She saw something they did not. She saw how carefully he cleaned. She saw how he avoided touching the cub with dirty hands. Her heart whispered that this was not madness, but wisdom. The leader stepped closer, his voice like a knife. "What are you doing, human? You pour poison on your own skin, yet you mean to touch my son." The human met his gaze and spoke firmly. "Not poison. It kills what you cannot see." The words puzzled them. Kills what they could not see. To the aliens, sickness was a curse, a shadow, or a weakness of the body. But the human spoke as if it were an enemy, a living thing that could be fought. The warriors laughed bitterly. "He fights ghosts with water." Still, the human pressed on. He picked up the scissors again, now shining clean. He looked at the cub's wound, then at the leader. "I must cut away what is dead." The pack roared with outrage. Their growls shook the air. Cut the leader's cub with cold metal? Madness. One warrior lunged forward, but the leader raised his paw and stopped him with a single command. "Wait." His eyes burned, but he remembered his promise. The human would have his chance. The cub whimpered softly, his body shaking with fever. The mother closed her eyes, pressing her forehead to his. Then she pulled back and whispered, "Do it, please." The human nodded. With careful hands, he placed the scissors against the fur around the wound. The sharp blades sliced through the matted hair. The sound was soft, but to the pack it was like thunder. They stared in horror as tufts of fur fell to the ground. He worked quickly, clearing the wound of tangled hair. What lay beneath made even the warriors flinch. The flesh was swollen and red, the skin split open, oozing with dark fluid. The smell of rot filled the air. The pack hissed, stepping back. Their ears flattened. They had not seen the wounds so clearly before. They had not realized how deep the sickness had spread. The human's jaw tightened. He reached for another cloth, soaked it in the sharp-smelling liquid, and pressed it against the wound. The cub yelped weakly, his body twitching in pain. The pack howled in rage, ready to strike. But the mother spread her arms wide, shielding the human with her body. "No," she cried. "Look at him. Look at our cub. He fights still. Let the human work." The leader growled, his claws scraping the dirt. His heart twisted between pride and despair. But he forced himself to wait. The human cleaned a wound again and again, wiping away the dark rot, pouring liquid to wash it. The cub whimpered, but his breaths did not stop. Slowly, the angry heat around the wound seemed to lessen. The flesh, though torn, no longer looked drowned in sickness. The human reached into his bag again. This time, he pulled out a thin thread and a small curved needle. The aliens tilted their heads, confused. What strange new weapon was this? The human held it up. "I must close the wound. If I do not, it will open again. The sickness will return." The pack growled in disbelief. Close the wound with thread? So flesh as one sews cloth? Madness. Insult. Yet the mother nodded, her voice trembling. "Do it." With slow, steady hands, the human pierced the torn skin, pulling the thread through. The cub whimpered, his ears twitching, but the human's touch was firm and gentle. Stitch by stitch, he closed the gash. The pack stared in silence, unable to look away. They had never seen such a thing. When the wound was sealed, the human tied the thread and cut it with his scissors. He then placed the clean white strips over it, wrapping them tight with more cloth. The cub's body was small, but now it looked protected, hidden beneath the strange new covering. The human sat back, his chest rising and falling with tired breaths. Sweat glistened on his face. He looked at the leader, then at the mother. "It is done," he said softly. "Now he must rest. If his strength returns, he will live." The pack whispered among themselves. Some still hissed in anger. Others stared at the cub, their eyes wide with wonder. They had never seen such methods. They had never imagined wounds could be treated with such strange, simple tools. The leader stepped closer, towering over the human. His voice was low, heavy. "You speak as if this is enough. But what if he grows weaker? What if your cloth and thread cannot hold back death?" The human met his burning eyes. "Then I will not stop trying. I will fight for him until the end." The leader's gaze lingered on him for a long moment. Then he turned to the cub. His son's breaths were still shallow, but steadier than before. The fevered shaking had slowed. Hope flickered, faint but real. The mother lowered her head to the human. Her voice broke with gratitude. "Thank you." The warriors still growled. Suspicion still burned. But for the first time, no one mocked the human's primitive tools. They only waited, hearts heavy, to see if the cub would live to see the dawn. The night stretched on, long and heavy. The forest outside the circle of aliens was silent, as if the world itself held its breath. Only the faint sound of the cub's breathing broke the stillness. Weak, fragile, like a candle flame in the wind. The pack watched the small human. Every move he made drew their eyes. Every breath he took carried the weight of their judgment. They saw the white cloth wrapped around the cub's wound. They smelled the bitter liquids still burning their noses. To them, it was all strange, wrong, and dangerous. Yet none could deny that the cub still lived. The mother sat close, her muzzle pressed against her child, her eyes shining with both fear and hope. She whispered soft words, ancient songs of comfort. Her voice trembled, but she would not stop. She would not let her cub pass into the dark without hearing her love. The leader stood tall, his shadow looming over both the cub and the human. His claws dug lines into the dirt. His chest rose and fell with fury he could not unleash. Pride screamed inside him, demanding that this primitive healer be thrown out, torn apart, erased from memory. But love chained him there, forcing him to watch. His son's life meant more than his pride. The cub coughed, a weak, rattling sound that made the pack flinch. His tiny body shuddered. His breath caught in his throat. For one long, terrible moment, no air entered his lungs. The mother cried out, "He cannot breathe." The pack roared in panic, some rushing forward. The human shoved them back with only his voice, sharp and commanding. "Stay back." He lifted the cub gently, placing his ear against the small chest. His face grew tight. The cub's breath was shallow, barely there. The human set the cub on the ground again and quickly opened his bag. He pulled out a strange object, a small mask connected to a thin bag. The aliens tilted their heads in confusion. What was this? Another toy? Another trick? He pressed the mask gently over the cub's mouth and nose. Then he squeezed the bag. Air pushed into the cub's lungs. The small chest rose. The mother gasped. Again, the human pressed the bag. Again, the chest lifted. He worked steadily, his eyes focused. "Breathe," he whispered. "Come on, little one. Breathe." The cub coughed again, choking, then let out a thin, wheezing cry. His chest began to rise on its own, though weakly. The pack froze in silence. They had never seen such a thing. Air pushed into lungs by hand. It seemed like sorcery, yet it was not. It was simple, direct, primitive. The human did not stop. He kept the mask in place, kept the rhythm steady, giving the cub strength his body could not find alone. But the cub's skin was hot, too hot. Fever burned him from the inside. The mother felt it when she touched him. The human saw it in the sweat on his small face. The human opened another bottle, this one filled with clear liquid. He poured it carefully into a small tube, then into the cub's mouth. The alien snarled, "You feed him water? He needs strength, not drops of river." The human shook his head firmly. "Not water. Medicine, to fight the fire inside him." The leader's eyes narrowed. "You dare give him poison?" The human met his gaze. "If I wished him harm, he would already be gone. Trust me, or kill me now." The leader's chest heaved. His claws twitched, but he did not move. His son whimpered again, his breath still faint but steady. The human cooled a cloth with water from his flask and laid it gently across the cub's forehead. The mother tilted her head. "Why?" she asked softly. "To draw the heat away." The human answered. "The fever must break, or the sickness will win." The warriors grumbled. "Heat cannot be pulled away with wet rags. He plays with water while the cub dies." But the mother said nothing. She only watched. Hours passed. The human worked without rest. He checked the bandages, replaced them when they grew dark with blood. He pressed more medicine into the wound, cleaning it again and again. He gave the cub small drops of liquid, making sure none was wasted. He cooled his forehead, lifted his tiny body to keep his chest clear, whispered to him in a tongue no alien knew. The pack grew restless. They paced, their tails lashing, their claws scraping the ground. They were hunters, warriors. They fought battles with strength and fury. To wait here, helpless, while a human toyed with their leader's child, it burned them with shame. One warrior finally snapped. He stepped forward, his fangs bared. "Enough of this madness. The cub grows weaker with every breath. Let me end the human now before he kills him with his games." The mother leapt to block him, her eyes blazing. "Touch him and you touch me." The warrior froze. No one in the pack would dare strike the mother of the cub. Growling, he stepped back, but his eyes stayed full of hate for the human. The leader's voice rumbled like thunder. "You will wait. You will watch. If he fails, his death will belong to me alone." The pack lowered their heads, submitting, but their growls did not stop. The cub whimpered again, his small body trembling. His breath hitched, and for a heartbeat the world seemed to stop. The human leaned close, pressing his ear to the chest again. He clenched his teeth. The heartbeat was faint, too faint. He grabbed his bag again, pulling out a sharp metal needle attached to a small tube. The aliens roared in outrage. He will stab him. The leader raised his claws, ready to strike. But the human shouted, his voice sharp, quiet. His eyes blazed with fire. This will give him strength. Without it, he will not last the night. The mother pressed closer. What do you mean? The human softened his voice for her. Food, drink, medicine. It cannot reach his blood fast enough. This will. It will go inside, to fight for him. She stared at the strange object, fear and hope clashing in her eyes. Then she nodded once. Do it. The leader growled in fury, but he could not deny her. He could not deny the truth. The cub was fading, and time was the enemy. The human pierced the cub's small arm carefully, sliding the needle in. The cub whimpered but did not wake. The clear liquid began to flow. The pack watched in horror. To stab a child, to put liquid into his veins, it was unthinkable. But minutes passed, and the cub's breathing grew steadier. His tiny chest rose and fell in smoother rhythm. The human sighed, relief washing over his face. He whispered, "Good. Keep fighting. Stay with me." The mother pressed her nose to her cub, her eyes wide. "He feels cooler," she whispered. The leader leaned close, his ears twitching. He heard the heartbeat, still faint, but stronger. He stepped back slowly, his eyes narrowing. The warriors whispered in disbelief. What trick is this? What curse has he laid? But the cub's breaths told a different story. They were still shallow, but they carried hope. The human sat back, wiping sweat from his brow. His eyes were tired, but his hands were steady. He looked at the leader. The fight is not over. The night will decide, but he has a chance now. The leader's gaze burned into him. His claws flexed. His pride screamed. But when he looked at his son, his heart broke. The cub's chest rose and fell with fragile rhythm, but it was not the rhythm of death. Not yet. The mother lowered her head to the human, her voice trembling. "Thank you. You gave him a chance." The pack growled low, still suspicious, still angry. But none spoke against her. None could deny what their eyes saw. The leader finally spoke, his voice cold as steel. "If he lives, it will be by your strange ways. If he dies, your blood will be mine." The human nodded once. "Then I will not let him die." The forest was silent again, broken only by the cub's fragile breathing and the steady beat of hope and fear. The battle against death was far from over. The night had grown colder, but no one in the pack felt it. They stood in silence around the firelight, their glowing eyes fixed on the human kneeling beside the cub. The air was heavy with fear and doubt, yet also with something new, hope. The human's hands moved with care. He unwrapped clean cloth from his pack, folded it neatly, and pressed it against the cub's tiny chest. He did not rush. His face was calm, though sweat shone on his brow. Each movement seemed simple, almost too simple. To the aliens, it looked like a child's game compared to the glowing tools of their own healers. Still, the cub's breathing had changed. It was not strong, but it was steadier now. The mother leaned close, her ears twitching. "He is better," she whispered, afraid to believe it. The human nodded. "For now, but he is not safe yet." The leader's claws flexed in the dirt. His eyes never left the human. The pack could smell his anger, but they could also smell his fear. His son still lived, but he did not want to admit it was because of a human. The healer of the pack stepped forward. His fur was marked with age, and his voice carried authority. "What are you doing, outsider? You touch him with cloth and strange powder. That cannot fight sickness." The human did not look up. He pressed another cloth to the cub's forehead, where heat burned like fire. "Your tools failed. My ways are different. Not magic, not machines, just medicine." The old healer growled. "Primitive tricks. They are nothing." The mother's eyes snapped open, fierce with desperation. "Nothing. Look at him. My child breathes. He lives because of him. The pack stirred. Murmurs rose, tails flicking with unease. Some growled, unwilling to believe. Others watched in silence, unsure what to think. The leader raised his hand, silencing them all. He stepped closer, towering over the human. You speak boldly for one so weak. But tell me this, what price do you ask for saving my cub? The human finally looked up. His eyes, though tired, were steady. No price. I save him because he is a child, because life is worth saving. The words cut through the circle like a blade. For a moment, the aliens did not know how to answer. Among them, debts and power always carried weight. Nothing was free. Nothing was given without cost. Yet this human offered help without demand. The leader narrowed his eyes. Lies. No being gives without reason. The human shook his head. Believe what you wish. But my work is not finished. The cub still needs more care. If I stop now, you may not survive the night. The mother stepped forward quickly. Then do not stop. Please, do whatever you must. The leader growled deep in his chest, but he did not stop her. He turned to his pack. Their glowing eyes were fixed on him, waiting. He could feel their doubt, their hunger for hope, their need for an answer. Finally, his jaw tightened. Continue. But if you fail, human, you die. The human only nodded. He returned to his work. Hours passed slowly. The fire burned low, shadows stretching long and sharp across the ground. The pack stood watch, silent and restless. Every so often, the cub whimpered or coughed, and each time the pack flinched as though struck. The human stayed awake, moving with tireless focus. He measured drops of liquid from a small bottle, lifting the cub's head gently to let it trickle into his mouth. He cleaned the child's skin with warm water, then wrapped him in cloth that smelled faintly of herbs. His hand shook with exhaustion, but he never stopped. The mother stayed close, her breath trembling. She whispered soft words in her own tongue, words of comfort and prayer. The leader remained near as well, but he said nothing. His eyes never left the human's hands. Finally, just before dawn, the cub stirred. His chest rose and fell in smoother rhythm. His small claws twitched. His eyelids fluttered, and for the first time in many hours, his eyes opened. The mother gasped. Tears ran down her face as she pressed her muzzle against him. He wakes. He wakes. The cub gave a weak cry, small but alive. His eyes moved, finding his mother. He nuzzled into her fur, clinging with tiny strength. The pack erupted with noise. Howls, cries, the stamping of claws. Relief, joy, disbelief. They had seen death close in, but had been pushed back. The human leaned back, shoulders sagging. His hands dropped to his knees, his breath heavy. For the first time, he allowed himself to close his eyes. The leader stared at his son, alive in his mate's arms. His chest rose with deep breaths. His claws clenched and unclenched. He wanted to roar with triumph, but the truth gnawed at him. His child had been saved by a human. The healer stepped forward, fury in his voice. This is shameful. We let an outsider meddle with our blood. His tricks are not real power. This is chance, nothing more. The pack growled in reply, but not all in agreement. Some snarled with him. Others shook their heads, their eyes soft as they looked at the cub. The mother turned on the healer, her voice sharp. Chance. Then let chance live forever. My cub breathes. Your tools failed. Your wisdom failed. His hand saved my child. That is truth. The healer's fur bristled, but the mother's words were iron. He lowered his head, beaten. The leader stepped forward, raising his voice over them all. Enough. His eyes locked on the human. You have done what none of us could. My son lives because of you. For that, you will not die. The human nodded once, too tired for more. But the leader's voice hardened again. Do not think this makes you our equal. Do not think we will bow to your kind. You are still weak. You are still primitive. But his eyes dropped to his son. You have bought yourself a place among us for now. The pack listened in silence. Some accepted, some did not, but none could deny what they had seen. The human sat back against a log, his breath still rough. He did not answer with pride or anger, only quiet. He had not come for power. He had not come for thanks. He had come for life. And as the first light of dawn touched the forest, a truth began to spread through the pack, slow, uncertain, but real. The human was not as weak as they had believed. His ways were strange, but they worked. His medicine was primitive, but it had saved the leader's heir. A seed of doubt grew in their hearts, and with it, something even greater, respect. For the first time in their long memory, the aliens looked at a human and wondered, what else might these fragile beings be capable of? The first light of dawn spilled across the forest, painting the trees gold. Birds with silver wings called from the branches, their voices sharp in the cold morning air. The mist began to lift, but the heaviness in the camp remained. The cub was alive. He slept now, his tiny chest rising and falling in smooth rhythm. His mother never moved from his side. Her eyes closed with relief, yet she did not dare leave him. She kept one paw draped over his small body, as though death might return if she let go. The human sat a short distance away, his shoulders slumped against a fallen log. His eyes were half closed, his face pale with exhaustion. He had not slept through the long night. His hands still smelled of herbs and cloth, yet there was no pride on his face, no boast of triumph, only quiet weariness. The pack gathered around the fire. Their voices were low, but their words carried sharp edges. "This is wrong," one hunter growled. His mane bristled with anger. "We let a human touch the blood of our leader's line. We should have torn him apart before his shadow fell across the cub." Another snapped back. "And if we had, then the cub would be ash in the ground. Did you not see him breathe again? Did you not hear his cry? He lives because of the human's hands." Snarls and growls filled the air. Some nodded in agreement. Others bared their teeth in denial. The old healer stood tall, his fur streaked with white. His eyes burned with fury. "Do not be fooled. The child's life hangs by a thread. A night of breathing does not mean health. This human's tricks may hide the sickness, but it will return. And when it does, worse will follow. You will see." The pack stirred uneasily. His words carried weight, even after his failure. They had trusted him for many seasons. His voice still held power in their hearts. But then the mother rose. She stood with her cub in her arms, her fur glowing in the dawn. Her eyes, sharp and wet, turned on the healer. "You speak of failure? My cub would be dead if I had listened to you. He lives, and that is truth, not your bitter tongue." Gasps echoed. Few ever challenged the healer so openly, but no one dared silence her, not when the cub shifted in her arms and gave a faint, living whimper. The leader stepped forward at last. His silver fur caught the morning light, scars cutting hard lines across his face. His eyes swept the pack, then locked on the human. For a long moment, no one breathed. Finally, he spoke. "My son lives. You all see it. No denial will change that. The human's hands, weak though they are, pulled him back from death. This cannot be undone." The pack muttered uneasy. The leader raised his clawed hand, silencing them. "But do not mistake this for victory. Do not mistake it for strength. This human is still fragile. His ways are still strange. He is not one of us." He paused. His gaze fell to the ground, then lifted again, hard as stone. "Yet he has earned the right to stay for now. He will not be harmed while he walks among us." The words struck like thunder. Some lowered their heads in acceptance. Others growled in open defiance. But none dared challenge the leader outright. The human said nothing. His eyes closed again, and he let his head rest back against the log. He looked almost asleep, though he heard every word. As the sun climbed higher, The pack began to move. Hunters went to the forest. Guards took their stations. But the air was not the same. Where once there had been unity, now there was fracture. Whispers followed every step of the human. Some looked at him with awe, others with hatred. The healer did not rest. He walked among the pack, his voice a constant whisper of doubt. It is a trick. The cub will fail. The human is poison. His kind always brings ruin. His words spread like smoke, filling ears, seeding suspicion. By midday, the tension cracked. Two hunters, both young and proud, stood before the human. Their eyes glowed with anger, their tails stiff. One spat on the ground at his feet. "You should not be here," the hunter snarled. "You shame us with your false healing." The human opened his eyes slowly. He looked up at them, his face calm though his body was weak. "I saved him. That is no shame." The second hunter bared his teeth. "You saved nothing. You only delayed death. When the cub dies, your blood will pay for the insult." The mother appeared then, her voice sharp as a blade. "Enough." She stood with her cub held close. "Speak of death again, and I will silence you myself." The hunters lowered their ears, but their eyes still burned with hate. They left, muttering curses under their breath. The human sighed and closed his eyes again. He had no strength for fights of pride. That night, the pack gathered again around the fire. The cub slept peacefully, his breathing steady. Hope stirred in some hearts, but fear still clung to others. The healer spoke once more. His voice carried high into the dark. "Do you not see? We are divided already. His presence breaks us. His tricks blind you. If we allow him to stay, we will lose more than a child. We will lose ourselves." The leader listened in silence. His eyes shifted between his pack, his mate, his child, and the human resting nearby. The fire crackled, sparks rising into the night. At last he spoke. "Perhaps we are divided. Perhaps his presence brings fear. But answer me this, healer. Would you rather my son had died?" The word struck like a spear. The healer's mouth opened, but no sound came. Around him, the pack stirred. Some lowered their heads in shame. Others clenched their jaws. The leader growled softly. "I will not forget who failed and who saved. You may call his ways primitive. You may call him weak. But weakness did what your strength could not. That is truth." Silence followed. No one dared reply. The human shifted where he sat, his eyes opening slowly. He looked into the fire, his face unreadable. He had not asked for this battle, but it surrounded him all the same. And deep within the forest, in the spaces between shadows, other eyes were watching. Predators, rivals. The smell of division carried far, and it promised opportunity. The cub had been saved, but the price of trust was only beginning to show. The forest was quiet, too quiet. The pack felt it before they saw it. Their ears twitched, their fur bristled. Even the fire at the center of camp seemed smaller, its warmth fading against the weight of the air. Something moved in the shadows beyond the trees. The human felt it too. He sat near the cub, who now slept peacefully in his mother's arms. The child's breaths were steady. His tiny claws curled into her fur. For the first time in days, he looked safe. But the human's eyes did not rest on him. They searched the dark. The leader rose slowly, his silver fur glowing in the moonlight. His claws scraped the ground as he sniffed the air. His growl was low and deep. "They come." The pack tensed. Hunters readied their spears. Guards lifted their shields. The mother clutched the cub tighter, her ears flat against her head. Then, from the tree-line, the enemy appeared. They were another pack, larger, leaner, their eyes burning with hunger. Their leader stepped forward, scars crisscrossing his chest. His voice was sharp and cruel. "We smell weakness. We smell division. You hide behind a human. You are no longer worthy of this land." A growl rippled through the pack, but fear tainted it. The rival pack was strong. And worse, they were right. Their unity was cracked. Doubt had spread like sickness, and now their enemies had come to claim the kill. The silver-furred leader stepped forward, baring his fangs. "You will not take what is ours." The rival only laughed. His hunters spread wide, surrounding the camp. Their eyes glowed in the dark, circling like wolves around prey. The human rose to his feet. He had no claws, no glowing eyes, no fur bristling with power. His body was thin, his hands empty. Yet he stepped closer to the leader, standing at his side. His voice was calm but firm. "I will help." The old healer snarled, his voice sharp with scorn. You cannot fight them. You will only die." The leader looked down at the human, his expression unreadable. For a long moment, silence hung between them. Then he gave a short nod. "Do what you will." The rival leader raised his hand. "Kill them all. Leave no trace." The battle exploded. Claws clashed with spears. Snarls and roars shook the night. Shadows leapt between trees as the rival pack surged forward. Teeth tore into flesh. The air filled with the stench of blood and smoke. The human moved quickly, his mind sharp. He did not fight as the aliens fought. He did not match claw for claw or tooth for tooth. Instead, he reached for his bag. His hands dug through cloth and glass, searching, finding. From the leather pouch, he pulled small jars. He smashed them against the ground, and clouds of sharp smoke burst into the air. The rival hunters coughed, their eyes watering, their movements faltering. The human did not stop. He grabbed strips of cloth, wrapped them around the ends of sticks, and lit them from the fire. Flames roared as he waved them high. The rival pack hesitated, their snarls breaking into growls of fear. Fire was no stranger to them, but in human hands it became a weapon that bit the dark itself. The leader of the pack watched, stunned. This human did not fight like them, yet his strange ways struck just as hard. His tricks scattered enemies where claws could not reach. But the rival leader roared, his fury breaking fear. He lunged forward, claws raised, straight toward the mother and her cub. The pack cried out, but the human moved first. He threw himself between them, the burning torch swinging wide. The flames roared, forcing the rival back. The human's arm shook, his body weak, but his eyes blazed with fire brighter than the torch itself. "You will not touch him," he said. The rival leader snarled, circling. "You, a human? You think fire will stop me?" The human's voice did not waver. "No, but it will slow you long enough." The silver-furred leader crashed into the rival with the force of thunder. Their bodies slammed together, claws flashing, teeth snapping. The fight of leaders began, each blow shaking the ground. The human staggered back, his chest heaving. The mother pulled him aside, her eyes wide. Why do you fight for us?" The human looked at her, then at the cub in her arms. His voice was simple, quiet, but strong. "Because he deserves to live. Because you all deserve to live. That is enough." Her throat tightened. No words came. The battle raged on. The pack, seeing the human's fire, found new strength. They howled as one, their voices rising into the night. They struck harder, pushed faster. The rival pack faltered, their unity breaking. The silver-furred leader fought with fury. His claws tore, his teeth sank deep. At last, with a roar that split the night, he drove the rival leader into the dirt. Blood stained the ground. Silence followed. The rival hunters froze, their courage gone. One by one, they fled into the trees, their shadows swallowed by the forest. The camp stood, broken but unbowed. The pack howled in victory, their voices rising into the dawn. The leader stood tall, his chest heaving, blood streaking his fur. His eyes turned to the human. For a long moment, the two stared at one another, beast and man, claw and hand, power and fragility. Then the leader spoke. His voice carried across the camp. "He fought with us. He stood against death. He saved my son. He saved my pack. He is no longer just human. He is brother." The pack froze. Their eyes widened. Then, slowly, they bowed their heads. Even those who had doubted, even the healer, lowered themselves. The sound of respect filled the air. The human's shoulders slumped. He let the torch fall into the dirt. His breath was rough, his face pale, but his eyes were steady. He had not fought for titles or respect. He had fought because it was right. The mother stepped forward, her cub cradled close. She bowed her head deeply. "You gave him life. You gave us hope. We will never forget. The cub stirred, his small eyes opening. He reached out with a tiny claw and touched the human's hand. The human smiled faintly, and for the first time, Pax saw it. Not weakness, not fragility, but strength of a different kind. Strength that did not need claws or fangs. As the sun rose, the forest returned to silence. The mist faded. The smoke drifted away. The pack gathered around the fire, but this time there was no doubt, no division. The healer, his pride broken, approached the human. His voice was heavy. I was wrong. Your ways are strange, but they work. You are not what I thought. The human only nodded. I am not strong like you. But strength is not only in the body. Sometimes it is in choice. The leader's scarred face softened, just for a moment. He lifted his head and howled, a deep, powerful sound. The pack joined him, their voices echoing through the forest. And within that chorus, the human stood, not apart, not beneath, but among them. The cub had been saved. The pack had been saved. And a truth had been carved into their memory. Humans, fragile and strange though they seemed, carried a power no one could deny. Primitive medicine, primitive fire, primitive hands. But to the pack, it no longer meant weakness. It meant survival. It meant hope. It meant family.